What's up, guys? We've all seen how the system handles addiction. It's a revolving door. They go in, dry out for a few days, get some hots in a cot, and then thrown right back into the same environment that broke them. But there's a massive shift happening right now in DC that's going to change how rehabs in Michigan and across the country actually operate, which, trust me, is long overdue. Health and Human Services Secretary RFK Jr. just announced the Streets Initiative. And this is an interview on News Nation where RFK addresses this directly. Here's why this is different than anything that we've seen before and why it's so important. Let's start with the scale of the problem. If you're one of those people who thinks this doesn't affect you, go ahead and take a look at these numbers.
Today, HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. announced his part of what the president calls the Great American Recovery, okay? The HHS initiative is called Streets. Secretary Kennedy joins now to explain. Mr. Secretary, thank you very much for joining us. Happy New Year. What is the Streets program? What is the acronym?
Addiction now is a catastrophic crisis for our country. It's the largest overdose deaths, the largest cause of death in Americans under 45 years old. The direct cost of addiction is about $92 billion a year, and the indirect cost, $890 billion. And
to put that into perspective for those who don't know, direct costs are things like emergency room visits, police and medical response, massive Narcan distribution, medical detox, and inpatient stays generally cost roughly $250 to $800 per day, which is just the public facilities. Not to mention the $30K to $50K it costs to house an inmate for a year. Indirect costs are even more. That's things like lost productivity, the strain on the foster care system, and the literal destruction of the American family unit, which ends up setting the next generation up for the same patterns. As most of you know, there's not one of us that aren't affected by addiction in some way, directly or indirectly. This is a massive cost on the individual when it comes to themselves, obviously. That's the primary tragedy. But most people don't know how much that costs everybody. And I'm not even focusing on the emotional cost right now. We end up spending more and more because people keep relapsing. Instead of saying, maybe we are doing this wrong, they double down on an already broken system. But RFK Jr. wants to change that. And here's one of the reasons I think this just might work. So let's continue.
every family now in this country is touched in one way or another. As you know, Chris, my own family, I lost my brother David to this. I lost two of my nieces during COVID were casualties to this disease, many, many other family members. And so I have a long interest in recovery. Was an addict myself for 14 years, and I've been 43 years in recovery. The system that we've been using so far has not worked in this country. It's a fragmented system.
And that's it right there. Finally, we have someone at the top who's actually been through it, so he knows what he's talking about. Hopefully he will make decisions based on true experience and not just theories. Because I was unaware of this until recently, but the man had a 14-year heroin addiction, which started after his father's assassination. Which, come on, I mean, it's completely understandable. Losing a father has to be one of the hardest things a man can go through. Plus, in that way. But this hits me because I dealt with nearly a 14-year heroin addiction myself, so I can relate to that part immensely. For those who haven't been there, a 14-year run isn't just partying. It's a complete rewiring of your brain. You lose your 20s, your 30s, you lose your identity as a whole. When a guy like RFK says the system hasn't worked, he's speaking for the millions of us who were processed through rehabs that felt more like warehouses than hospitals. Anyways, let's keep going, it gets better.
Where nobody really is responsible for the outcome to the addict. You have a lot of agencies checking boxes. You have housing, law enforcement, treatment centers, outpatient, and housing. The treatment alone is almost always ineffective if it's not accompanied by major changes in life. And Right now, even in mental health, it's fee for service. Well, everybody in the line is incentivized to keep us sick. If you go to a rehab and then you relapse, the rehab gets double the money.
And this is the thing that is undeniable. Nobody is actually responsible for your outcome, for your son's outcome. Once you're out of rehab, that's usually it for most people, unless they're court ordered or something. As we see with divorce rates, when you incentivize people to go against the core values of their contract, what they were founded for, they often don't work out. I know this because I used to look at rehab as an easy way to go kick my habit while getting 3 meals a day. I'd maybe go to a co-ed one where I could see some women every day. Highly unproductive, by the way. Now think about it from a business perspective. If rehab actually cures you, they lose a customer. But if you fail and come back 6 months later, their beds are full again. Most rehabs is, I think it's like 30 days and then you can go back. That's 12 times a year they can get paid for you relapsing and them not doing their jobs. It's a sick business model. The thing is, you need a change of heart, a complete change of worldview, and to accept truth. Living by rigorous honesty literally demands it. And what does this mean for materialism or these other ideologies people may come in with? Well, nothing. They leave with the same mindset they arrived with, which inevitably leads them right back. But why would rehabs actually try to get us sober if they'd go bankrupt if we did? Imagine if a mechanic got paid double every time your car broke down a week after they fixed it. They'd have no reason to actually fix the engine, and they would probably prove too many suspicions correct. That is the current state of the American addiction treatment. RFK is proposing a move to outcome-oriented care. They want to pay for results, meaning the rehab only gets the win if that person stays sober, gets a job, and stays out of the back of a police car. So simple, yet it took so long. Let's keep going.
To try to solve the problem for the first time, the Biden administration's solution was harm reduction, which means basically managing the decline, providing needles and safe places to shoot up. And at one point, apparently, even there was a proposal by my predecessor to buy crack pipes for people. These are not solutions. We need comprehensive solutions.
Now, I want you guys to know something. Harm reduction sounds compassionate, especially if you have a loved one deep in the struggle and you're just desperate for them to stay alive. But I promise you, in the current system, it is just a way to keep you breathing long enough to milk you for every dime you have. Whether that's because someone at the top votes study material for a university or numbers for a government grant, it doesn't matter. What is it actually helping? Not the individual. Keeping someone alive while they slowly decay is not the same as restoring them. The myth of the successful addict doesn't exist. They'll give you needles and they'll give you pipes, but they won't give you a reason to live. It's low-key demonic to tell a man, we'll help you stay a junkie safely. If the system isn't helping a man change, if it isn't helping him become the kind of person who doesn't want to do drugs anymore, then he will be right back in front of the doors, right in that cycle again, and who knows how many people we'll lead down the same path while we're out, how much destruction we'll cause before we finally end up struck down by our own sword that we live by. Now, does it keep people alive? Yes, if you use it right, but it's a mask, it's a crutch. If you're looking for a bridge, the only thing I would ever recommend after having been on Suboxone, methadone, Vivitrol, and all the rest is Sublocade. It's a once-a-month shot, you get it from your doctor, you don't get high, and you can honestly stop after the first or second month. It tapers off so slowly that over time, you experience zero withdrawals. And honestly, it's like the only real option for men who have jobs and families. They can't just walk away from them for 2 weeks or a month or whatever it is, to go detox. But even then, the shot isn't a cure. That change of heart and mind is still required. Human nature has requirements for meaning and purpose. that the modern world has taken for granted or just discarded altogether. You can't replace a soul with a chemical. And let me be clear, methadone is never the answer. If you haven't heard the term liquid handcuffs before, it's called that for a reason. In my opinion, it's the hardest habit to kick, like the hardest. You're looking at withdrawals that can last months or more. You're just trading a street master for a state master. So what is the actual plan to break the loop? Well, it's called the Streets Initiative, and it finally creates what we've been missing, a channel of care.
And what we want to do is change that system so that the rehab will get paid for keeping you sober over a long period of time. They'll get one block grant, and then if they can keep you sober, they won't have to spend more money on you. And those are the kind of, we need outcome-oriented care that gives accountability to one person who's in charge of that addict and making sure that all along the line, do they have a job? Have they reestablished their relations with their families, with their friends? Are they part of a community? And all of those questions are not asked nowadays. People just check boxes. Did I, did they check in at this time or whatever? And it's not working, and our addiction problem is now worse than ever. Streets is just a part of the program, a much bigger program.
This is honestly one of the most promising shifts I've heard, at least for a starting point. Not because the addiction crisis is already a full-blown national threat, but because this block grant model flips the incentive structure in a way that we've needed for a very long time. Instead of paying rehabs per visit, per stay, per relapse, rehabs would actually be held accountable for what really matters. Keeping people sober, restoring their lives. Now suddenly, everything changes. Now suddenly they're asking, do you have a job? How are your relationships? Are they being restored? Are you part of a real community? Are you building a life worth staying sober for? That's accountability. That is alignment. That's actually treating the whole person and not just a symptom. Imagine that. And we all know that money drives behavior. Shit, it drives the world. But if we start rewarding health, stability, and prosperity instead of dysfunction, you're going to start seeing better systems emerge. You're going to start seeing tighter and healthier families and communities. Because here's the truth. Rehab itself is the easy part. It's structured, controlled. The real fight begins after detox, when you're back in the world facing the same triggers and the same cravings without a foundation to stand on. And that's where most people fall apart, because they don't have a solid worldview. They don't know what they're living for. That's why it matters that RFK is also opening the door for faith-based treatment centers to compete for these same grants in this $100 million block. And I truly hope they take this opportunity, because this is huge. This is why I made the video. Because purely secular material solutions can only take a man so far. I'd even argue they take him backwards. At some point, you have to deal with the deeper questions. What is a human being? What is our purpose? What is our responsibility to others? The modern world has stripped us of these questions, but they are central to whether a man stays sober or goes back to destruction. I have lived this reality. So if the initiative pushes even a fraction of the system towards truth, accountability, and real transformation, then it is a step in the right direction. So what do you guys think? Is putting skin in the game for rehabs the answer? Should we hold the people who hold our loved ones' fates in their hands accountable? Let me know in the comments. Stay unchained, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks, guys.